Chapter 3 Peripheral. December 15th, 2011. We'd been in front of the queue for a long time, looking at the dull wooden door that would soon open. I looked behind me and noticed that a lot of people were waiting. The entrance kept opening, sending icy breezes toward my neck. I'd never seen the interior of Ashia Tower before, and I'd never believed I'd ever enter it. The lobby felt empty despite all the people that had come due to the vast and dreary amount of space. I think it'll be time soon. Yeah, probably less than 20 minutes. I'd had my mind blank all day, with no capacity to hold a conversation. Atsuki knew that and kept restlessly glancing around. I hated the way I'd become and silently apologized for putting him through even more pain. It was early in the morning and we hadn't slept. Almost exhausted, I let my head drop and thoughtlessly stared at the floor. During the previous week, I could hardly even claim to have been alive. The death of a friend had shaken me in a way I'd never expected. After lonesome moments, months going over the most important decisions of my life, I'd thought that Atsuki's call had been a breath of fresh air. What was the point in going to study abroad if it wasn't what I wanted the most? When I'd been at Atsuki's house, I'd felt embarrassed for not having realized before how straightforward the decision had always been. But reality had hit me way harder just the next day. I'd finally decided on something, and it had been rejected. Why had Mia died? It wasn't fair. The three of us were so happy that day, so why had it been Mia's last? Of course, anyone could die at any point. I'd heard those words many times, but I had never really understood them. What if I died instead? What if Atsuki had? Why was I so selfishly sad that my future wouldn't be as I'd believed during that day? At the very least, she had been unconscious. My thoughts were a mess, so I'd put what little willpower I had into keeping them blank. Otherwise, I'd keep replaying the span of time in which I'd awakened next to Atsuki and heard everything. It wasn't easy to accept that the previous 2 weeks had actually happened, but I already considered them the two worst of my life. I'd known Atsuki for many years, and the person next to me was just a cast-off shell of us. I'd never seen him look so depressed. However, despite the impact everything had on me, I'd also been able to think positively. That was why we were in Ashia Tower. We couldn't let Mia's death take us down too. The three of us had spoken about missing the old days and about how hard the summer months had been. Even though it was just the two of us, Atsuki and I had wanted to come to Ashia's event. We wanted to overcome everything together. But that wasn't fair. She didn't deserve that either. The mere thought of imagining a cheerful future without Mia was heartbreaking. She typically hadn't shown much emotion, but I knew she'd had a good heart. I hated that after her death. I regretted not having spoken to her enough. I hated how little I'd known about her, despite how often the three of us had been together. It couldn't have been fair that I regretted that only because she had died, and that despite how broken I felt, the sadness her parents must have been experiencing didn't mean as much to me because I'd never talked to them. I knew how shallow and unreasonable some of my thoughts were, but that wasn't enough to put an end to them. Was I just selfish? I kept wondering if that was all. You three are the first group, correct? A woman had been talking about what we would do and she was addressing us. Yes, after a long wait, Atsuki answered with a plain and quiet voice. Alright then, please follow me to the event room to be the first to see the Sekimeiya. Right. That day, Ashia was showcasing a new discovery. I couldn't feel the intrigue I'd once faintly had, so after the two people at my side went through the door, I followed behind them with slow steps. On the opposite side was a long corridor, vast and completely lacking in comfort. I didn't see where the others had gone, but a few of the doors were open. Are you feeling better? Oh, yeah, I'm fine, don't worry about it. I walked toward one of the doors, but it didn't seem like anyone was behind it. Do you regret coming? I turned around, saddened to hear that question. No, of course not. I'm seriously glad we're here, I mean it. I didn't regret having come at all. The part of me that could feel it was really glad Atsuki was still at my side. I know how you feel, okay? It's the same for me. It doesn't help a lot to say it, but I don't want to see you sad. Maybe because I want to be, Atsuki. I'm okay. This is where I need to be right now. Sorry, I must look terrible. You know this isn't something you need to apologize for. Nothing about this is your fault. Not so sure. I wish I didn't have to be a drag for you now. Hey, come on. If you want to leave, we still can. Don't feel like you have to push yourself for my sake. It's alright, thank you. Let's continue though. I was the one who wanted to come. Okay. The woman called us from one of the rooms, and we shut ourselves inside it. Behind a velvet curtain was the gemstone we would be shown. After we introduced ourselves, we were told the basics behind its discovery and rarity, leading up to the cabinet containing it being unlocked. But as the curtain rose, something else did. A dense and dark smoke filled my vision, and before I could realize that I should have held my breath, I fell to the floor. Atsuki, what? My heart went wild, but I couldn't move any other part of my body. My mind flashed to the last time smoke had put me to sleep, and remembering what the outcome had been, I desperately tried to resist the urge to close my eyes. That time, I didn't wake up in the hospital. I was in the same room as before. Immobile, I stared at the floor, my awareness gradually returning. Yes, I think so. I was relieved to see that both of us were okay. Akro, the other man, was safe too, but we quickly saw that Naomi was gone. That was the beginning of a very long day. There had been an attack in the tower, and plenty of questions came with it. The first one was the origin of the smoke that had knocked us out. There took place the first real conversation I'd had with Atsuki in days. We were forced to discuss what we'd been caught up in. And that was what we'd most needed. We hadn't talked about anything because we didn't have the strength to say what we wanted. The situation we ended up in forced us to talk to each other again. When I noticed that we were speaking normally, I was grateful that coming to the tower had given us what we'd been looking for. However, the future that should have been waiting for us was challenged by the same thing that had made it attainable: the events that unfolded in Ashia Tower. In the hallway we met Erina, Isla, Kate and Sai. There we learned that we would spend 12 hours in the building due to an alarm that had been recently installed. It should have gone off whenever the Sekimeiya was stolen, but when we looked in its cabinet, that was immediately thrown into question. From the security room we contacted the outside, which clarified the outline of what had happened. After that we were assaulted by question after question. The computer turned off out of the blue, leaving us unable to look at the recorded footage. Then we looked for Naomi, who should have been somewhere in the building. We separated into two groups and looked through the upper floors. There we learned about the predictions Isla's friend had made. So as far as I can tell from this so far, this is just a retelling of chapter 1 from Shirie's perspective. I don't think there were any real changes yet. And that Naomi had come from the floors below, demanding to talk to Kate privately. That was when Atsuki and I noticed the first signs of the underlying factor of our imprisonment. The elevator was brought up, but we couldn't find who'd boarded it. The reason was time travel. The Sekimeiya, which we had come to see, possessed the power to send people through time. As ridiculous as it sounded, we had no choice but to accept it. Was it true that everything happened for a reason? Had we been given the ability to undo the past after wishing for it? If so, there were two different bright futures on the horizon. We could leave the tower after moving past Mia's death, or we could go to the past and save her. Just when it seemed the wound was beginning to heal, we were captivated by a slim hope. But it looked like the world might have been mocking us instead. We drew the conclusion that changing the past was likely not doable. Next to our two possible futures, there was something darker. It first appeared when we saw Naomi's body on the floor, devoid of life and soaked in blood. Trapped with us was a killer, a person who'd produced the same pain we'd felt before. There had to be justice for Naomi, but we were unable to figure out the truth behind her death. Something became clear very early on. When we could leave the building, everything would be much different from when we'd entered it. Was one of the people who discovered Naomi's corpse responsible for her death? I despised that thought, but more than that, I despised whoever that person was. We heard a sound that indicated someone else was around us, but we couldn't find anyone. It seemed that during the time we'd looked for the culprit, the elevator had moved in a strange way. Whatever the culprit was doing kept happening right under our noses. And soon, we came across the bathrooms on the lowest floor. Inside the men's was Naomi's body. Not the one we'd already found, but a different one. That confirmed what we'd all already imagined. In the tower with us, while the world couldn't see it, something beyond the bounds of possibility was taking place. We managed to enter the attic thanks to one of the keys Naomi had. Up there, the footprints on the carpet informed us that such impossibilities extended to every place in the building. And lastly, inside Isla's purse, we found a greater harbinger of hopelessness than anything before it. Would we spend more than a month in that building? As impossible as it sounded, that word didn't mean much anymore. Attempting to solve the smaller questions, Atsuki and I walked all the way down from the attic. There, I travelled through time for the first time, but it wasn't me who touched the Sekimeiya. We began to learn more and more about how the time travel functioned, but the biggest barrier stood resolutely in place. The past wasn't changing. Sometime later, we travelled again. We appeared in the attic, but we had to stay put in one of the bedrooms. We were very tired, so we both lay in the beds. Despite how disheartening it was, we were able to calmly talk about the Sekimeiya. I no longer believed that we had much hope of understanding it or using it to our advantage, but we could at least try. And even that faint belief was thrown back in our faces. When we woke up, we found out that the Sekimeiya had taken Isla's life. That reality was truly as ruthless as we'd feared. What had happened to her was shrouded in mystery, but the Sekimeiya had been the catalyst. At my side, I saw Erina's devastation and wondered if my own even came close. After a long wait in the lobby, I found a hidden mechanism in the storeroom. Past the movable wall, there was a door without a handle that appeared to lead outside. But after what some of us had heard from the recorder, it wasn't possible to think that freedom was so close. Was it truly a single door away? Erina suggested locking ourselves up in a room. That was the best and safest way to reach the time limits. We chose one of the bedrooms in the attic and decided to stay there for the remaining hours. However, we didn't even last 2 hours before a wave of questions forced the lock open. I did my best to keep my mood positive, but every time I looked around me, I hated seeing where I was. I'd spent days avoiding the sun, and it had become what I wanted to see the most. On top of that, due to how little I'd slept, my head was constantly cloudy and my body felt physically drained. We had already accepted that the Sekimeiya wouldn't bring anything beneficial. It wouldn't let us change the past, and touching it would make us stay locked in the tower for longer. So I told Atsuki that we shouldn't do it again. The most important thing was making it out safely. But all over the lowest floor was proof that the torment had continued. And when we opened the door to the security room, we saw that Kate, who'd been heavily suspected, had been killed as well. In the opposite hallway was Erina's body, collapsed on the floor. Crushed from the sight, we walked to the center of the floor, wishing to be isolated so that we wouldn't become the next targets. What made us leave was who Atsuki saw. According to him, he'd seen another version of me in the hallway. It didn't make sense. Who had he seen, and why? I didn't want to prolong our stay, but it seemed I had. When we took the elevator all the way down from the attic, we were intercepted. On the third floor, a sudden knife threatened to cut our lives short. Were we about to die too? There was no way we'd let that happen, so we ran as fast as we could. Through an exhausting chase, we heard the voice of our attacker. It was Sai, one of the people who'd been with us since that morning. What had he done to be chased with a knife? What had we done to be chased with a knife? His voice conveyed that attempting to ask that would be fatal. However, when the three of us ended in the event room, his deadly gaze ceased. The moment he left the knife on the floor, our heart rates finally began to slow down. He revealed that he had to do something that required the use of the Sekimeiya in the cabinet. After we failed to find him in any of the rooms where he could have been, he managed to obtain the Sekimeiya and threatened to use it at any time. He made no effort at hiding that there was something he wanted to do upon activating it, so given what he'd done to us and that he had probably been behind some of the murders, we couldn't let him succeed. While he continued taunting us, the range of the Sekimeiya increased. Minutes later, when he was about to touch it, Atsuki and I ran toward him to be encompassed in his travel. Sai made contact with the Sekimeiya, but he didn't disappear. Only my surroundings did. In front of me was Sai. Both of us had appeared in the right-hand bedroom of the attic, so now we're getting to some new stuff. When Sai's eyes met mine, he raised his eyebrows, hesitant to move. The knife had almost fallen from my grip, but I still had it in my right hand. I had picked it up in the event room and Sai had purposely left it behind, and it hadn't disappeared after traveling. What was it that you wanted to do? Nothing. He had reiterated many times that he had to go to the past to do something, but he hadn't expected me to appear with him. I was in front of the door while he stared at the knife in my hand. If I didn't move, I could make sure to prevent whatever he wanted to do. Then it's fine if we stay here, right? You only needed to travel to the past, so that shouldn't be a problem. Are you threatening me with that knife? You know these cameras are recording, don't you? You must have only gone some amount of minutes to the past. We're going to spend them here until we get to the point we were at. Atsuki's not here, so he must have appeared somewhere else. You really are threatening me with a knife? How bizarre. I suppose we can stay here for a bit, since that dumbass will probably search for us. I'm confused though. I'll admit I didn't expect this to happen. What did you expect to happen? You can't really think I'll tell you anything while you have that pointed at me, right? I looked at the knife. Was I really threatening him? He had chased us with it, so while it was fair, the thought of threatening someone with their own death was sickening. I'm confused. Why did we appear here? How is it possible that I appeared with the knife in the attic when I only had it in the event room? I recall telling you and Atsuki that you were wrong about what you said. You mean that you've never been in this bedroom with the knife, right? Yes. Maybe I was right and you were wrong then. Wait, what time is it? He looked at his wristwatch and sighed. There's no current time. What? He showed me the tiny display from afar. It was blank. It stopped working? That's what Kate said happened earlier, right? Yes, it seems it wasn't the battery's problem, but the watch's. Even if it was working, it's unlikely it would display the real time though. Take a few steps back. Why? Just do it. He stepped further into the room without turning around. He could have run at me at any point, so I wanted to feel a little more secure. I walked to the drawer stand and opened the highest one while making sure Sai couldn't dash to the door. Inside was the key to the bedroom. When we'd been running from Sai, we'd thought that he might have grabbed it to prevent us from locking ourselves up, but it was still there. He saw me taking it out and frowned. Then he began to slowly approach me. Stop! You wouldn't be thinking about locking me in here, right? That would be very mean. That wasn't my intention. By attempting to trap him from outside, I would have given him a chance to push the door open and overpower me. That was why I wanted to lock the door from the inside, so that he couldn't simply rush to it and leave at any moment. I inserted the key into the inner keyhole and turned it. He locked both of us in. Very courageous. I dropped the key in my purse and zipped it. If Sai had been thinking about forcing his way out, that would make him less likely to attempt it. I continued standing in front of the door, a little calmer than before. For a while, Sai looked pensive and maybe even uncertain. Trying to decipher his thoughts had rarely proved useful. Are you going to tell me why you wanted to go to the past? No. And are you fine staying here? I suppose. This is all a little annoying. What are you thinking about? You seem pretty lost in thought. You want me to be honest? I'm thinking about whether I should kill you. That sent a chill from my body. He really had tried to kill Atsuki, and he was willing to kill me. What we wanted was to leave the building safely, and by keeping Sai locked away, I had intended to prevent more things from happening. I began to worry about my decision. Why do you look scared? You're the one with a knife. I suppose that was a little misleading. I'm not trying to kill you. As I said, I'm debating whether I should. You remember what I said, right? You will die, that's a guarantee. Because I pretty much know it for a fact. I'm wondering whether I should make it happen myself. Since I have confirmation of your death, it's very likely that if I try to push you into a wall, I'll kill you. I have no reason to think I'll end up safe though. That knife you have is pretty scary and I wouldn't want to be recorded. You're still saying that I'm going to die? Why? Because I've seen it. Are you really unaware that the blood in the lobby is yours? It's not. It wasn't my blood. Let me go back to what I already said. I know what I'm saying for certain, but the details behind it are very confusing. I do feel bad for you. You were in a coma for a while, right? If I remember correctly, the name that was put out was yours. It's unfortunate that you'll die here after surviving that. I raised the knife to protect myself. The likelihood that he was telling the truth kept growing as he talked. Did that really mean that I was close to dying? Would it just be him who would do it? Or was he making it up to scare me? I'd seen Atsuki's face when he'd been told about that supposed fate of mine. The way he'd looked and nothing more was enough motivation to fight for my life. I'm trying to sympathize with you, but it's not easy when you're pointing that knife at me. Where did you even find this? Haven't I told you already? If you want to keep asking questions, don't repeat them. His prediction that I would die had allowed him to assert control again, which might have been intentional. I tried to erase the worry from my face. When I didn't say anything else, he went back to thinking. With a few steps of separation, we both stood, silently on alert. Minutes later, nothing else had happened, but I'd realized one thing. We had gone some minutes to the past. Given that we hadn't heard anything around us, it was very likely we'd arrived at a time after Atsuki and I had left the attic due to being chased. That meant that the entrance to the attic was locked, so if Atsuki hadn't also appeared inside, he had no way to reach us. It was unlikely his replicated location would have had the key. I looked inside my purse and saw that the key to the attic was still inside, just like the knife. It had appeared with me in the bedroom while there had been no possible location to be replicated that met those conditions. Hey Shiria, how much time do you think we traveled? It's not like we went an hour back, right? 20 or 30 minutes, I'd say. He'd taken a few steps closer without alerting me. I don't know. Well, don't you think we've passed that threshold already? Shouldn't we get going? He wants to leave. Does that mean that he can still do what he wanted? It's not possible we went much further back, is it? Not going to say anything? I thought a bit more. I shouldn't believe anything that he says just because he sounds convincing. He sounded convincing before at times when I knew for a fact he was lying. He knows more about how the Sekimeiya works, but he's refusing to say anything, so he has a reason to keep that to himself. He definitely has something in mind, and maybe if he reveals it, whatever he's planning won't work. But I can make sure that it won't work as long as we stay here. The problem is Atsuki. If he could enter the attic, I could tell him what's happening without unlocking the door. If he didn't travel, around now is when he should start to search for us. I couldn't decide. It was very possible that the reason behind most of what had happened throughout the day had been Sai. There wasn't a lot of time left until 2100, and if I could seclude him during that last stretch, we might have been able to leave safely. Naomi, Isla, Kate, and Erina have died. The people behind that must have been either Sai or Akuro. And the recorder, which has contents that are practically impossible, could have been arranged with Sai, Akuro, and Isla. Not only that, but Sai had a knife, and he already proved to be a deadly threat to Atsuki and probably me. If we just stay here, he won't be able to harm him or use the Sekimeiya again. Of course, the recording itself must have been fabricated using the Sekimeiya, so Sai, who knows the most about it, is the perfect person to be behind it. Why would he create that? Why would Isla have had it? If he's been lying recently, why would he say that I'll die or that the blood in the lobby is mine? That's impossible. That blood can't be mine, so why would he say it? It matches with the recording because I wasn't mentioned once in it. Could it be that he's consistently trying to follow a story that he's set up? And either way, I can't die as long as we stay here and I protect myself. Does that mean that if I decide to leave, Sai's claims become the truth? I can't decide, because if Sai isn't the culprit, then it's Akuro, who could be anywhere, and then Atsuki would be up against him alone. Both Akuro and Sai have acted suspicious in their own ways, and Sai sounded hostile toward him earlier. That could have been a lie though, since both of them escaped the bedroom together. But if Akuro is the culprit, even if Sai and I leave the bedroom, it's hard to think we'll be able to do anything if he wants to harm us. So, keeping Sai shut in here is the safest move. The only real problem is that I can't tell Atsuki what's happening if he can't enter the attic. Hello? I won't move. What? Why? That's not what you said earlier. You tried to kill Atsuki and threatened me. There's no way I'll just let you go. Hey, aren't you the one currently threatening me? Are you sure you can do this? Will you kill me if I try to unlock the door and leave? Remember that you're being recorded. You shouldn't try it. Also, I don't think the cameras are recording. I shouldn't? There's a time travel device downstairs, so I'm having trouble understanding why I shouldn't try to resist abandoning. Is that what you want? The Sekimeiya for yourself? It would be pretty stupid to deny that. I'm sure you wouldn't turn it away either. I didn't want to humor him anymore. He didn't say anything else, so the quiet returned. Is that it? Have we decided that we'll spend the rest of our time in here? It should only be a bit more than 2 hours unless we went really far back, which wouldn't make sense. I'd spent a large amount of time standing up, so I sat on the bed. I took the strap of my purse from around my neck so that Sai wouldn't knock me down if he pulled on it, and left it at my side. He paid no mind to it and kept looking at the floor. I still felt severely conflicted and worried about Atsuki's situation. The more I thought though, the more I felt I couldn't let Sai free, and it was very unlikely I could successfully lock him in from outside. Time kept moving in the silent attic. We must have been alone as the lack of sound was overwhelming. Eventually, Sai stood up without opening his mouth. That was the first noise I'd heard in minutes, and I stared at him curiously. He slowly stepped to the door with his empty hands raised. What are you doing? I saw him gripping the handle and my heart sped up with uncertainty. However, when he tried to open the door, the lock prevented it. Oh, it's locked, right. What? By the way, you never reattached the chain, right? The chain? What are you talking about? Nothing. He shook his head and retreaded his steps. I saw his nonchalant look while I was still frowning. Did you just try to leave? Absolutely not. Is this how you and Akira escaped the bedroom the last time? That was what Atsuki suspected. By trying to open a locked door? By opening it and then going back in time to unlock it. Did you wait until now to try it because it was unlikely it would have worked earlier? You're incorrect. He approached the drawer stand and took the screwdriver out of it. What's that for? Don't worry, I don't want to use it as a weapon. We reattached the handles. It was me and Atsuki after everyone had left. You didn't do it right then. From here I noticed it was a little loose and I just turned it to see if I was right. You didn't attach it properly. Huh? I looked at the handle and didn't see anything wrong with it. Holding the screwdriver, Sai stepped to the door again. I moved back a little, afraid of the sharply pointed tool. He inserted it into one of the screws and removed it. Then he unscrewed the one in the opposite corner while I stared dumbfounded. I didn't know what he was doing, but messing with the handle wouldn't let him open the door. See, these two go in the bottom. You swapped them. What are you talking about? They're the same. He ignored me and unscrewed the last two, which dropped the handle to the floor. No, they aren't. You don't understand much about screws, do you? I stood up. Move away. I don't know what you're trying to do, but stop. I'm not trying to do anything, though. Do you not want me to attach it properly? No, step back. He sighed and backed off. I guess I locked myself in even further. He left the screwdriver in the drawer and looked at his feet, biting his lower lip. I sat back on the bed. Soon after, out of nowhere, he sat on the other side of it. Don't sit here. What? That's just rude. I'm tired. Stand up. Fine. But instead of standing up, with a very quick motion, he extended his arm toward me. Startled, I looked down and saw he'd unzipped my purse. What? I stood up fast enough, tightly gripping my purse and the knife. Oh, damn it. My heart quickly calmed down as I stared at his childish expression. What the fuck are you doing? It was just a joke. I couldn't have left anyway since you have that knife with you. You remember what you asked earlier, right? Yes, if you get close to me again, I will use the knife. Don't move again. Alright, you can't even take a simple joke. He let his body fall and lay on the bed, yawning while face down. Stand up. I don't think so. Sorry, I just wanted the bed for myself. You told me not to get close to you, so I won't. I'm tired. I said so earlier. I didn't care anymore. I approached the desk and sat on it, resting my back on my purse and protecting it against the wall. There you go, that's much better. He repositioned his face on the pillow and closed his eyes. A couple of minutes later, he hadn't moved at all. I had buried my face in my knees. What was happening outside the attic? A piercing pain had arisen in my chest, and there was no getting rid of it. I began to heavily regret my decision when I considered the possibility that I wouldn't see Aski again. What if he had already been attacked? I raised my eyes and saw Sai was still lying down. There's no way he won't hear me if I try to leave, right? I jumped back a little when he moved. After a long yawn, he sat up and stretched his arms. He saw me staring at him but didn't react. Instead, he crouched to grab the handle from the floor, stood up and turned around. I heard a sound, but I didn't believe it. Yet the door opened and Sai removed the key he'd inserted into the keyhole. Oh, what? I didn't run to the door because I knew I was doomed. The handle was detached, so as soon as I stood up, Sai would close the door, locking me in behind him. Frozen, all I could do was ask what had happened. You really didn't see that I took the key from your purse? You thought I'd only unzipped it? I have it right here. I couldn't believe it, but he had the key in his left hand. While I processed what he'd said, his smile widened. Wait, is this why you removed the handle? Of course, otherwise it's unlikely I could have repaid the favor and locked you in. I figured it was only fair. I can't believe you didn't realize I wanted the bed for myself just to be closer to the door than you. You're not very smart, are you? Sai, what are you... Now goodbye, I have things to do. From the hallway I heard Sai locking the door. That didn't matter, because even if he left it unlocked I would have had no way to leave. Still trying to wrap my head around what had happened, I stood up slowly and approached the door. I couldn't open it. It was exactly the same way all of us had previously locked ourselves up in that very bedroom. Sai had left with the handle and the key, so I knew I had no way to get out. No, now Aski's definitely in danger. Sai, come back just for a second. There was no response. The attic felt just as desolate as when Sai had been there. I noticed that I still had the knife in my hand. I slid it through the gap of the door, trying to push open the latch. I frantically moved my arm up and down, but it simply got stuck in the middle. Sai! I knew he wouldn't come back. Trying to calm my nerves, I sat on the bed. He must have used the elevator since he shouldn't be able to leave through the main door. That means the attic is still locked. Not even he should be able to enter again once he leaves. Or maybe that's not right. When Aski and I locked ourselves in the attic, Sai was able to come in anyway. Is there nothing I can do? I can't take this door down. I tried to go over ways to leave, but I couldn't think of anything. All at once the overwhelming stress came back. My hand began to hurt, so I stopped pounding on the door. There was no way for me to reach anyone or for anyone to reach me. Inside a locked building on a locked floor, I was trapped in that locked room. I realized I hadn't gone to the higher level of the bedroom. I climbed up the ladder, but I couldn't find anything. The only traces of life were the messy sheets from the time we'd been waiting there. Would I have to spend 2 hours there? I could only feel the piercing pain strengthening, threatening to eventually leave me breathless. I have the only key to the attic Kate mentioned. There's no way the police won't have another one, right? At least I have the knife, so Sai won't be able to use it, and he said he didn't want to harm Aski anymore. Why did he have to come here? We should have just stayed home. I hated it, but I couldn't avoid thinking about the worst possibilities. The thought of losing my 2 friends in as many weeks was unbearable. Every time I managed to calm my thoughts, they returned, more and more terrifying. It was impossible for me to fall asleep, and the pain in my chest increased if I tried to lie down. I spent the time thinking miserably in front of the door, the persistent fear that I might have let the killer run free with Aski unprotected eating away at me. Even after what I'd already experienced, the way I felt then was far beyond anything I'd ever known. If I could describe Mia's death as an earthquake, I was experiencing one an order of magnitude higher. It hadn't been easy to accept her death, and I, of course, still hadn't moved past it. But it was incomparable. Knowing for a fact that a friend had died was far less of a strain then fearing that a friend could be about to die. Both were horrific, but only one of them involved fear, and Atsuki being in danger potentially due to my own failure only made it worse. I imagined that if any kind of hell existed, the way I felt while alone in that room must have come close. No, that... I looked back abruptly the moment a voice reached my ears. More than 10 minutes had passed when I perceived that sound coming from directly behind the door. Hey, are you there? Was that Sai? Nobody else could have entered the attic. Open the door, who are you? There was no response. Didn't imagine it, right? Hadn't. There was another sound. The other bedroom opened. I just heard you, please open the door. Once again, there was no response. Is Sai ignoring me? Either that or someone traveled to the attic. You're still here, right? What are you planning? I breathed hoarsely before letting out more exhausted yells. I know you're here. At least answer. He just walked away. Please, at least say something. Rather than exert myself any further, I simply focused my hearing. It made no difference. What are you doing? Please come back. Nothing. What is he doing? Hey! All I could hear were my desperate breaths. Did he only now leave the attic then? I defeatedly fell on the bed. Soon, my vision began to fade. I drained some of the scarce energy I had. Thankfully, the inside of my head had gone numb, so I could finally stop thinking. The lancing pain in my chest intensified, but I was able to withstand it. Minutes were passing by, but it didn't feel like it. I didn't close my eyes or try to relax. The only thing I could feel was despair. What the fuck? What? A new voice. That time it came from the room I was in, and I recognized it. I lifted my head without thinking and saw Sai standing in the middle of the bedroom. As soon as he saw me, he dashed toward the door, but I rapidly stood up as I grabbed the knife next to me. Hey, chill with that. He stepped back while I tried to understand what was happening. Did I really travel to this goddamn bedroom? That's just unfortunate. What's with that look? You're still here? How long has it been? I guess I just trapped myself. I cleared my throat, feeling unable to speak. Did you just travel from the future? Yeah, maybe. How long have you been here? I looked at his wristwatch, but the display was still blank. Do you have the key? The key? No. Answer my question. How long has it been since I left? I don't know. Maybe half an hour. Show me what you have. I approached him slowly, staying at a distance that prevented him from grabbing the knife. If he still had the key he'd snatched from my purse, I had to leave immediately. Don't you get that it's impossible I still have the key? It's what you said a while ago. I just appeared in the middle of this bedroom looking at the door. Obviously that coordinate is from the time you were in front of the door pointing the knife at me. At that point I didn't have the key yet. Just show me your pockets. Sure, I can do that. Start with your hip pack. My hip pack? Of course. He unzipped it. Inside I noticed a key that he hadn't had in the past. Hey, it's not for this bedroom. He handed it to me. This is for the bathrooms, right? Did you kill Kate? I wouldn't do that to him. It would be like punching a kid for getting into the cookies. They don't know better. Anyway, let's continue. I left the bathroom key on the drawer stand. Then Sai placed a hand on the right pocket of his pants and highlighted the outline of a key. Following, he took it out. It was the key to the Sekimeiya cabinet. He kept it and continued by putting his hand in his left pocket. No, stop. Huh? Show me everything you have in the other pocket. What? I just showed what I had. Do it. He put his hand inside the right pocket and brought out another key. Oh shit, isn't this the key to this very bedroom? Give it to me. Fucking Atsuki, how did he get me with this? I left the key on the drawer stand and looked at Sai sternly. That is the key to the other bedroom. Take your hand out of the pocket. Huh? Turn it inside out. Hesitantly, he did so. One last key remained inside. What the fuck? What were these doing in my pocket? So he had the key because he touched the Sekimeiya with it. Just like how I appeared here with a knife because I had it when I traveled. Atsuki and I were definitely wrong. Give me the key. You can't expect me to give you anything when you're pointing at me with that scary knife. What? I'm not approaching you to give you anything. And just throw it. I've had too many awkward moments trying to do that. Sai, throw me the key. Alright, we'll do the following. He turned around and began to quickly climb up the ladder. What are you doing? Come down. I didn't even have time to consider following him. Seconds after he had disappeared from view, he jumped back down to where I was. He extended both of his hands. They were empty. This is how I'm giving you the key. I left it up there so that you can obtain it without me getting close to that pointy knife. What? No, go get it. Well, that's not happening. What are you trying to do? Do you still have it and want me to go up so you can leave? Oh, not at all. I'm not like that. I can show you my pockets if you want. He showed the contents of all his pockets, and except for a single key, they were identical to the time we'd all showed our possessions. Yeah, I also have the attic key, but I guess that doesn't matter much to you. Are you happy now? Do you think I might have it in my hair? It's pretty messy today, maybe in one of my shoes. Don't worry, I left it up top. He kept clearing places where he might have hidden the key on himself until I was forced to accept that he didn't have it anymore. Anywhere else? What is he doing? Could he have hidden it somewhere in this section of the bedroom and I didn't realize? Wait in that corner. No problem. He approached the empty corner of the room and leaned back with a carefree face. I glanced all around, thinking about whether he could have left the key anywhere before climbing up the ladder. I knew I hadn't seen anything, but I couldn't trust it. Why are you climbing up the ladder then? What does it matter if he still has the key? Stay in front of the goddamn door. Ah, Shiraya, please. Indecisive, I looked through the few places I could think of where a key could have been hidden. The bed, the wardrobe, the drawers. I didn't find it anywhere, as it was impossible he had hidden it to begin with. What are you even searching for? I just left it there, below the bed. Then go get it. I don't want to. I walked to him slowly, running out of breath. Oh, what's with that face? You wouldn't be thinking of killing me in front of those cameras when I'm just trying to give you a key, would you? Why don't you go up first then and I follow you? I'm way too tired to climb this ladder again. Oh, he's such a shithead. He wants me to go up so that he can leave me behind again. How though? You should believe me. If you hurry up, you might be fast enough to save him. What? I came from the future, remember? I'm not exactly sure how far back I went, but it's possible Atsuki hasn't died yet. You're lying. Me? I haven't lied all day. No, you are. Am I? Are you sure? I just found him dead, but I don't even know what happened to him. I guess it must have been Akro. No, it didn't matter that he could have been lying, or that it was unlikely the past could be changed. Before I could keep thinking, I was hastily climbing the ladder. I crouched next to the bed and looked under it. It was dark, so I had to wait for my vision to adjust. Bye. Shiraya, you idiot. What were you even gonna do with the key? Why did you... Ah, that was so dumb of her. There's no way. I didn't react. I just kept looking at the floor, where there was nothing. I crawled back out and stood up, unable to raise my head. I glanced down through the hatch and saw the empty bedroom with the door closed. He was lying. He had to have been. I couldn't move. I didn't know what had happened, but all my energy was directed at denying what Sai had said. Once I got back down, I walked to the door and saw that nothing about it had changed. I still had no way to open it. I didn't knock on the door or yell, I just sat down staring at my lap. It kept happening. Every time I thought I couldn't feel more miserable, I did. During the minutes I sat paralyzed on the floor, I didn't perceive any sound. Once again, I was alone in the attic. And so I began to think that perhaps I didn't want to leave. If what waited for me outside was what I'd been told, it was better to stay inside. Fortunately, that thought was what let me snap out of it. No, I need to leave. Was Sai able to leave without the key? There's no way, right? He was just able to hide that he had it. I stood up and tried to think rationally. There was nothing around that indicated what he'd done. There was nothing under the bed, so he was just lying about having left the key there. He only wanted me to go up so he could lock me in again. Obviously. The key I'd left on the stand was still there. I knew it wasn't the right one, but I tried to use it anyway. The door didn't unlock. I did all I could to dispel the fog in my mind and think about what had happened. I had to leave urgently, and if there was a way out, I had to find it. I went up to the second level and looked below the bed again. Without a doubt, there was nothing there. He closed the door when he left, so he definitely opened and left through it. Is it possible he opened it without the key? That shouldn't be it. The way he could have left the bedroom the very first time, by opening the door, going to the past and unlocking it. That shouldn't have been possible either, because there was no handle to open it from the inside, even if it had been unlocked from the outside. But what if it hasn't been unlocked from the outside? What if it has literally been opened from the outside? Is it possible that he approached the door, saw it open, traveled to the past, and opened it from the outside to let himself leave? Could he have known enough about the Sekimeiya to pull that off? Maybe? If so, I might have been able to do it myself. I climbed down and stared at the door. It wasn't opening. Was that not possible? It hadn't worked for Atsuki when he'd tried it. Maybe it really wouldn't ever occur. I tried to think more about it. How could I open the door? For even longer, I stood still, mustering all my mental strength left to figure out how to escape. How had Sai done it? Had he used a key? If so, how? Wait. Did I let him do this? This is it. There's no way it's not. As soon as I thought back on one thing, the way Sai had escaped appeared in my head. When he appeared in the middle of the bedroom, of course he even said it. That location belonged to the time I'd been blocking his path to the door. That's how he escaped the first time. At that point, the key to the bedroom was already in his pocket, which is why he had it when he appeared from the future. Atsuki said it too, that he must have grabbed it when he'd been chasing us. But for some reason there was another key in the drawer. At some point the key must have been duplicated. The time he snatched the key from my purse, it only felt like he unzipped it. That's all he did. He tricked me into thinking that he'd grabbed the key, when in reality he left with one he had from the beginning. Did he just set up the illusion that I was trapped? I looked at the desk. That was where I'd left my purse a while ago. And the only place in this bedroom I didn't search was in my own purse, where he knew the other key must have still remained. I approached it and looked inside. Of course, the key was missing. He just wanted me to go up so he could grab the key from my purse. It's still unzipped. I looked at the hatch and dashed to the ladder. If I'm right, the other key must be somewhere here in the second level. It just hid it better to once again make me think that I'm trapped. There weren't many places to look through. I frantically went through all of them in search of a very small key. As soon as I started unzipping the leftmost mattress, a metal key fell to the floor. I breathed deeply before picking it up and clambering down. I grabbed my purse, ran to the door and inserted the key. When I turned it, I was able to open the door and I saw the walls of the hallway. So I'm just imagining the handle is actually attached at this point, because it's not in the picture. But you can't open the door without a hand. So yeah, well, whatever. I sped toward the living room while I stored the knife in my purse and took the key out. The most recent footprints there were definitely Sai's, which went to the staircase. I rapidly followed them down. You're alright. He's okay. Sai was just lying, thank God. I panted, suddenly realizing that I was out of breath. Oh, she was actually inside. I'm glad we found you. What? He locked me in here. What? Me? That's funny. I locked you in, but the key's in the keyhole, right? Was he acting like he wanted to find me? He locked me in the bedroom. I'm sorry. I've been here for almost 2 hours. He shut me in. So you chose to stay in the attic and want to blame me for it? Why, exactly? I couldn't look at Sai anymore. No matter whether he'd been the culprit behind everything, I hated him and the unquestionable malice behind his actions. However, 2100 must have been very close, and creating more conflicts would only be a problem. Are you okay? Yes, I just ran from the bedroom. I'm fine. You're saying I locked you in a bedroom. I'm not sure why I didn't do that, but how did you leave? The key. But I thought I trapped you there. Yes, but not with the key. I know what you did. I became a witch and learned magic, huh? We can go with that if you don't want to tell the truth. Wait, Erina. Huh? I suddenly processed what I was seeing without tunnel vision and saw Erin next to them, her clothing coated in dried blood. You're alive? Yes. I'm sorry if this sounds strange, but are you the same Shiria who disappeared from the event room with Sai? Hmm? Yes, I've been here since then. I see. We didn't check Erina's pulse, remember? Oh, thank God, and sorry. After thinking incorrectly for so long, I felt immensely relieved. Despite all that had happened, those of us who were still alive, including Erina, had to make it out. What's with the blood, though? I don't know. I got hit in the head, so my memories are a little fuzzy. Oh, what time is it? It's 1940. It's so late. What happened while I was here? And your watch is working again? Huh? Yes, of course. Wait, what's with your clothes? You were wearing different ones. Right. When we went to the past, we lost track of that Shiria, but she still has to be around. I'm confused though. Where did she come from? What? I waited for a response, but nobody gave one. Had the version of me that Atsuki had seen reappeared? Can you come with me for a second? Yeah. Can't you just talk openly here? Atsuki ignored him and brought me to the 5th floor. You know Sai's lying, right? You really locked me in a bedroom and told me you died. I was so worried. What? Don't worry, I believe you, even though I still don't understand Sai very much. I wanted to tell you about what just happened though. I think the past can be changed somehow. It can? Did you try it? I did, but I'm not sure what to make of the results. Those few words made me drop everything I'd assumed. After what we'd experienced, was it actually possible for us to undo what had already happened? It's possible what I changed only affected some people. I definitely went back in time and altered the events I'd lived. However, while Sai recognizes the change, I'm not sure Erina does. This was about that making that loud sound in the past, right? If I remember correctly. It felt like both realities met, leading into differing memories. That could be what happened to Akro when his version of events contradicted ours. That could have been a result of a change someone made that didn't affect us. Or maybe it didn't affect Akro. It sounds way too complicated. I'm not sure I follow, but you mean... If we go to the past, I'm pretty sure we could drastically change the way things played out. It's possible some people would still remember this reality, but the change should prevail. Even though two realities might have converged, the real one comes from my change. It overlapped the last one despite some people potentially still remembering it. So then, we just have to want to change the past? Is that the only requirement? If we travel to the point Isla died, we can overwrite her death? I'd long ago decided I wouldn't touch the Sekimeiya again, but the most fundamental reason had been that we concluded it wasn't possible to alter the past. I recalled my own selfishness and how much I despised it. If we were able to undo what had happened but chose not to, that was infinitely worse. Let's keep going. I last traveled from the staff room. Let's go there. We walked all the way down. In the reality where we were, many people had died. Even if changing the past was doable, how much could we really deviate from it? That didn't matter. As long as we could prevent the suffering I'd felt for at least one person, we had to do it. We slowly reached the crystal floor. On the way down, I noticed that the smell that had been around all day was getting stronger. Wait, let me think about this for a moment. Because, yeah, an idea just popped into my head. The idea is that currently we're in time, let's call it timeline A, which is the timeline we had originally experienced where Mia is dead and Atsuki and Shiria experienced the events in the tower for the first time. What if that scene we just saw at like the beginning of chapter 3 or the end of chapter 2, I guess whichever it was, where Shiria goes back and saves, in quotation marks, Mia, is what is the cause for timeline B. And timeline B being chapter 2, where Mia is the one in the tower with Atsuki and Shiria is the one that died. Still a lot of things that are confusing, but that's something that just popped into my head, so I wanted to, mention it. What's all this blood? It's mine. As you can see, I hurt my hand in the elevator. I don't even know why blood stopped coming out. Does it hurt? There's a lot of it. Don't worry, not very much. We entered the staff room, and I saw that a new locker was open. It's gone. Did you leave it in this locker? How? I found the key in the cleaning room. I know how that sounds, but I guess no key should have been needed to get it since I left the door open the last time I traveled. Oh, could anyone have taken it then? It would have been easy, but I'm not completely sure. The door was open like I'd left it, so it also could have teleported. While you were in the attic, we saw that happen. I definitely witnessed the Sekimeiya teleport to its cabinet. But Sai could have easily grabbed it. Akro as well. I saw him and he should still be somewhere. It was before I changed the past, but all I did was draw attention to hallway A. There's no way that was enough to override Akro's existence. We went to the event room and saw the empty cabinet. Once more, we wanted to find the Sekimeiya that someone might have hidden. Since that morning, a recurring question had been why anyone would hide the Sekimeiya when it could easily be found. I'd thought of many possible answers, but if the past could be changed, it had always been a flawed question. Of course, if anyone was directing things toward a future they wanted, they wouldn't want anyone to deviate things on their own with the Sekimeiya. Like always, whether it teleported or someone hid it, it has to be nearby and in a place we can access. We can find it. Was that person Sai, who knew the most about the Sekimeiya? Had an unknown culprit really orchestrated everything behind the scenes? I couldn't believe how fast I changed my mind and how much I wanted to find the Sekimeiya. Was it possible we could leave the tower in a world where I hadn't spent those 2 hours in that bedroom? I was taking Atsuki's word, but if we found the Sekimeiya, determining whether the past could be changed should have been simple. However, we had concluded before that it wasn't possible, because it had already been attempted. Many indications seemed to imply it. I wanted to erase the painful hours we'd all spent in the tower. Yet if that was possible, what if we could stay there for a whole month? There would be much more we could undo. The exit was near. In 2 hours, we were bound to learn about the future we'd be stuck with. Oh yeah, the Sekimeiya's gone. I've been searching for it before we went up. I'm sure you were. There's not much time left. Let's wait for the exit to open. What about the Sekimeiya? Who knows? I couldn't find it, but why do you care? Akro might be responsible, and he could have been able to bring it outside. If that happened, there's nothing we can do. However, if it's still inside, the police will find it immediately, right? It can be hidden from us, but not from them. Erina, do you know where the Sekimeiya might be? What? No, I don't. And none of us do. If it was deliberately hidden, I don't see the point in searching for it anymore. You know where it is, right? He must be the one who's been taking it all this time, and he's definitely had a reason. He doesn't want us to search for it so that he can keep it where he has it. You're free to enlighten me. If I knew where it was, what would my goal be? To hope the police don't find it? There's no way that would happen. Hiding it doesn't serve any purpose. However, someone took it away when we weren't around. That must mean they had the means to keep it out of ours and the police's sights. Otherwise, hiding it is pointless. Of course, that's only assuming the past can't be changed. With how much Sai's proven to know about the Sekimeiya, there's no way he's not aware of whether it can or not. You say that, but it's been happening since this morning, and it was never hidden in a place the police wouldn't have looked at. You could have a plan too. When the police enter as soon as they find the Sekimeiya, they'll activate it. That'll make everyone around it disappear, leaving a free road for you to retrieve it. Are you even listening to yourself? You think I want to steal the Sekimeiya? Sure, I wouldn't refuse it, but no way that would work. First of all, they'd simply appear in the past. If many people travel, the chaos would prevent any kind of plan like that from succeeding. However, some police must know about what the Sekimeiya is capable of, some people. No way they just send the police to grab it, knowing what touching it would do. I think I agree with him, that would work. Hiding the Sekimeiya is pointless, that's a fact. Incidentally, there's no place the police would ignore. What that means is that if the Sekimeiya is here, there's no reason to search for it. What I find most likely is that it's already outside though. Alright, I agree, so let's just wait. I frowned as I looked at him, but he avoided meeting my eyes and glanced back at Sai instead. Perfect, we've had enough headaches, so let's go to the lobby. Is this a bluff to waste time? If we want to go to the past, we want the Sekimeiya to spend a while out of the cabinet, which we accomplish by doing what Sai wants for a while. Then we can find it just like we have every time we've extensively looked for it. Atsuki whispered to me. Is the knife lost then? I shook my head and showed him my purse, still unzipped. Did you get it from Sai after you two appeared somewhere? No, I still don't understand it either. Both of us appeared in the attic and I'd already had it. I'd forgotten to mention it, but yeah, that goes against how we thought the Sekimeiya worked. Okay, let's sit around and wait. I'm very tired and just want to get out, so I hope nothing else happens. Whatever Sin or the culprit are up to is no concern of ours anymore. I have no idea what happened to Acro, but I don't care. If he's behind this whole mess, he'll face the consequences. Exactly 1 hour and 10 minutes. That's all we have to get through to reclaim our freedom. There was no reason to humor Sai anymore. I didn't believe for a second he wasn't lying. We sat on the left of the shutter without saying a word. He had needed to leave the bedroom to finish up a part of his plan. He admitted that himself, so there was no way he simply wanted to leave while unaware of the Sekimeiya's whereabouts. It can't be he's not the same Sai, right? No, even though his watch is working, he definitely knows what happened in the bedroom. We waited for a long time. It was the ideal thing to do. If we were able to find the Sekimeiya, we would do it after it had gathered enough energy. If finding it wasn't possible, we were calmly going through the final stretch. If the recording had been real, then we would either not find the Sekimeiya, or changing the past would turn out impossible. However, I was convinced that it was fake. No matter why it existed, it couldn't have been legitimate. I spent some time going over all the possible outcomes. What if the Sekimeiya was in one of the temperature regulation cabinets, not gathering any heat? If changing the past was possible, that should have still been fine, as we could go a short distance back, get it out of the cabinet, and progressively extend the distance travelled. Sai kept updating us with the time. We'd spent 25 minutes sitting down. Is it possible Sai's trying to trick us again? What if he knows what he wants to do, what we want to do? If he does, he might have set his wristwatch back a while to make it seem like we have more time. Could he have anticipated things enough to have also edited the computer's time? Shutter could open at any moment. I stood up. Wait here, I'm going to the bathroom. I'd been needing to go for a while, and I had to before walking through the whole building. According to Sai, there were 40 minutes left, but we couldn't trust that. Once I came back, we had to find a Sekimeiya. Oh, alright. Can't you wait? No, don't worry though, I won't go anywhere else. I knew he'd insist on stopping me, so I walked to the hallway B door. I entered the left door. Huh? I jumped instantly, feeling my back burn. The tank was burning. I knew what that had to mean. I grabbed it with both hands and lifted it up. The Sekimeiya was on top of a pipe, touching the side I'd leaned on. It was well balanced, positioned so that it didn't fall into the water. How hot does it have to be for the heat to reach the other side? And I still feel the burn. But here it is, and it's working for sure. The past could be changed. Were those words true? If so, I knew I could go really far back. Should I tell them? Was it even Sai who left it here? He knew where I was going. Atsuki wanted to find the Sekimeiya and change the past. If I told him, I knew he would activate it. However, I wasn't sure I wanted that. He wanted to erase the deaths we'd experienced, but that wouldn't occur if he changed the past. He would still remember them, and how would it even work? Would he be stuck in a world with another self of his? If he went to the past and changed things, he would end up personally suffering for it and would remember everything. If I did, on the other hand, he wouldn't. We didn't know where Akira was, but he or Sai must have been the culprit behind everything. If I went to tell them that I'd found the Sekimeiya, it was very possible Sai would purposely always stay in range. If that happened, he could then prevent the changes we wanted. And ultimately, it was a fact that they'd all said they'd talked to a self of mine I wasn't aware of. Would that end up being myself, despite me being sure that it couldn't be the case? If so, then I wouldn't be able to change the past. I was in the reality where that other self of mine had appeared. I hovered my hand over the gem and felt the imposing heat around it repelling me. I realized I couldn't breathe properly due to the strange smell from all day. It was at its greatest intensity, yet reaching oppressive levels. With my left hand under my coat, I lifted the Sekimeiya out of the tank. Its heat was burning me through the cloth, but I resisted the intense pain. This is the last chance we have to save anyone. Maybe saving me is impossible, but I have in reach the possibility to erase Erina's pain, or even Kate's. If that works, nothing should be undoable, and then I could tell Atsuki what I've done and work together with him to save Mia. I still knew he wanted to change the past, and maybe he didn't want to get rid of the memories he had. Who was I to decide that by myself? But I couldn't hesitate. If I chose not to activate the Sekimeiya, I might not have been able to live with myself. I couldn't accept acting only in my own self-interest. I lowered my right hand slowly toward the harmless-looking gem. I shut my eyes and gritted my teeth in pain, pushing through the burning aura until I made contact with the Sekimeiya. And that is where we'll end this episode of the Sekimeiya Spun Glass. Hope you enjoyed watching so far. We'll see what actually comes next. This could very well bring us back to that specific scene that we saw not so long ago, where Shiryu goes to save Mia. Or it might take us somewhere entirely different. But we'll find out. But what I actually plan to do next episode is go back to, not the notes, to the search, filter by, check none. What is that? Filter by name, question mark? Okay. I want to filter by choice. How do I... Wait. Oh, right. There was no choice in chapter 3. I forgot. I wanted to get to this one. Wanting to search the building again. That's what we'll do next episode. So, for now, hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks for doing so. I'll see you again next time. Till then, bye.